ever wondered why many of the parishes in Jersey are called Saint something? Well, it's because they're named after famous saints, holy men and women who belong to the Christian faith. Perhaps the most famous is St Helier, or as we Jèrriais speakers like to say, St Helier. He is the patron saint of the capital of Jersey, which is named after him. Helya was born in Belgium to a Saxon nobleman named Sigbert and his wife Lusigard. Now, Sigbert and Lusigard were pagans. They didn't believe in the Christian God. However, after struggling to bear a child, it was to the local Christian priest that Sigbert turned for help. His name was Kunbert. Kunbert suggested that Sigbert and Lusigard pray earnestly to God to grant them a child. And if God did grant them this prayer, then they should hand the child over to Kunbert so that he or she could be brought up in the Christian faith. Sigbert and Lusigard fell to their knees and prayed with all their might. And miraculously God answered their prayers and Helya was born. However, Sigbert refused to hand over his only child to Kunbert. And soon the pair had reverted back to their pagan ways, their promise to Kunbert forgotten. In his 7th year, Helya became paralysed by a mysterious illness, and once again Sigbert turned to Kunbert for help. Kunbert laid his hands upon the child and prayed for the child's healing. Miraculously, Helya recovered. Sigbert was so overjoyed with the rapid recovery of his son that he agreed reluctantly to hand Helya over to the tutelage and care of Kunbert. Helya grew close to Kunbert as he grew up, and he became to rely on him more than even his own father. In fact, Helya was such a devout student that he was soon performing miracles all over the community. Legend has it that he cured a man of his blindness, and that he managed to charm a snake out of the throat of another. Sigbert, realizing what was happening, grew enraged at the potential that he might lose his one and only son to Kunbert. So he arranged for his murder. Upon hearing the news that his best friend and mentor had been murdered, Helya fled from Belgium. And so began a journey from place to place. Eventually, Helya ended up in the Cotentin Peninsula, a place we now call Normandy. When he arrived, he encountered a religious community run by a man called Saint Marcouf, and he took Helya under his wing. However, monastic life didn't suit Helya, for he longed for the isolation where he could focus on God completely and dedicate his life to prayer and fasting. At this time, across the water in Jersey, the population had dwindled to approximately 30 people due to the repeated Viking raids. The people were naturally desperate for a Christian leader, someone who would shepherd and protect them. Now, when news of this reached the ears of St Marcouf, he immediately thought of Helya. Helya was duly dispatched to Jersey, and upon his arrival, he made his home in a cave-like hole on a rocky outcrop in the middle of the Bay of St Helier.
Helya lived an isolated existence as a hermit, devoting his days to fasting and prayer. The islanders grew to love him, as from his rocky outcrop he was able to spot the sails of approaching raiding parties and warn the islanders, who could then hide. He continued to perform miracles, and legend has it that he cured many people of lameness and an inability to walk, and that he even conjured up a storm through prayer to drive the raiding party back out to sea.
All was going well until in 555 AD, a party of vicious Vikings managed to land their ships on the shores of Jèrriais. They dragged Helya down from his rocky outcrop, and as a message to others, using an axe, they severed his head from his body. Then, to their utter horror and amazement, Helya reached down and plucked his own severed head and proceeded to walk 200 paces towards the shore. The Vikings were terrorized by what they saw and hurried back to their ships and fled. The heartbroken people of Jèrriais recovered his body and loaded it onto a small boat and sailed it home to Normandy, where Helya was buried in the small town of Breville-sur-Mer. The day after his burial, it is said that a freshwater spring miraculously appeared next to his grave, and the waters of the spring had healing powers. Today, the spring in Breville-sur-Mer still flows free.
Vini benudi qu'attends amour. C'est non de pomba qui est bon, c'est ben que nous attend. On dit que pour moi vini benudi qu'attends amour. C'est non de pomba qui est bon, c'est ben que nous attend. Ben que nous attend.